Musically, there was a great synergy, but romantically, it sounded like a nightmare.
Kind of was, because I just was this person constantly looking for something he couldn't give. And that part was wrong. But the music, we were right there together. Finally got us to marry was when our accountant said, you know, you could pay a lot less taxes if you were married. I mean, not me, I wanted to, but that was what said. Daryl said, okay.
Toni Tennille has always been known for her sweet, soulful voice and her iconic hits with Captain and Tennille. Recently, she opened up about the reality behind the music, sharing a side of her life that fans never expected. This shocking revelation about her marriage to Daryl Dragon, her former husband and musical partner, shows that their love story was far from perfect. So what was really going on behind the scenes of their seemingly happy union? Join us today as we dive into the details of Toni Tennille's new memoir and uncover the truth about her troubled marriage. Toni Tennille, born Catherine Antoinette Tennille in Montgomery, Alabama, came into the world on May 8, 1940. Raised alongside her three sisters in a musically rich household, Toni's early years were steeped in the melodies of big band music that her parents adored. Her mother, a local singer, and her father, Frank Tennille, who ran a successful furniture store and was also the man behind the first radio station in Montgomery, shaped her upbringing. Music was woven into the fabric of her life from the start, and it was clear that she was destined for a career in the arts. Toni's natural talent for music emerged early, and she began to study classical piano as a child. She pursued her passion for music with diligence, taking her lessons seriously and dedicating countless hours to mastering the instrument. Her voice, a rich contralto, was also developing into a remarkable asset. Throughout her school years, music was at the heart of her identity, and it would continue to be so as she transitioned into her college years at Auburn University. It was there that Toni found a spotlight on the stage, becoming the only female singer with the Auburn Knights, the university's highly regarded big band. Her powerful voice, combined with her stage presence, set her apart from her peers and gave her the confidence to pursue a future in entertainment. After leaving Auburn, Toni's life took her to Southern California, where her family had relocated. It was here that she began to build her career in the entertainment world. She joined the South Coast Repertory Theater, a decision that marked a shift toward acting. This opportunity allowed her to explore her talents further, blending her love of music with her newfound interest in acting. It was during this time that she was approached by a fellow student to compose music for a new musical he had created, titled Mother Earth. The show, centered on ecological themes, gave Toni her first taste of writing music for the stage, and the experience ignited a new passion within her. Toni's time in California also led to one of the most significant relationships of her life, both personally and professionally. In the early 1970s, she met a talented keyboard player named Daryl Dragon. Daryl, who was touring with the Beach Boys at the time, had earned the nickname Captain for his habit of wearing a nautical hat during performances. The two musicians quickly bonded over their love for music and began a romantic relationship that would eventually define much of Toni's public persona. When Daryl recommended Toni to the Beach Boys as a pianist, she jumped at the chance. She became the only beach girl in the iconic band, playing acoustic piano during their tours. Her time with the Beach Boys not only deepened her relationship with Daryl, but also opened doors for her in the music industry. While traveling across the country with the band, she and Daryl began to experiment with their own music, performing as a duo during the band's breaks. They initially called themselves the Dragons, but soon changed their name to the now famous Captain and Tennille. Their performances in small clubs around Southern California began to generate a following. They had a unique chemistry on stage, Toni with her effervescent energy, and Darryl with his quiet, enigmatic presence behind the keyboard. During this time, Toni wrote the song "The Way I Want to Touch You," a personal and heartfelt expression of her feelings for Darryl. They used what little money they had to press a few hundred records of the song, which they distributed to local radio stations. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. The song caught on quickly, and soon record labels began to take notice. Captain and Tennille signed with A&M Records, and their careers skyrocketed with the release of their first major hit, "Love Will Keep Us Together," a Neil Sedaka-penned song that became an anthem of the 1970s. The song soared to the top of the charts, reaching #1 and winning the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 1976. Suddenly, Captain and Tennille were household names, beloved for their wholesome, feel-good music and the sweet dynamic between them. As their popularity grew, ABC approached them with an offer to host their own television variety show. The Captain and Tennille Show premiered in 1976 and became an instant hit. The show featured a variety of guest stars, including John Travolta, Don Knotts, the Pointer Sisters, and Red Fox, offering a fun blend of music and comedy. Toni thrived in the spotlight, loving the chance to perform for a national audience each week. However, Darryl, who had always preferred working behind the scenes, was uncomfortable with the attention. While Toni embraced the showbiz lifestyle, Darryl found it overwhelming. After one successful season, the couple decided not to continue with the show, declining ABC's offer for a second season. Despite stepping away from television, Captain and Tennille continued to enjoy success in the music industry. Over the next decade, they released 9 more albums and enjoyed 14 chart hits, including "Muskrat Love" and "Do That to Me One More Time." They toured extensively, performing to sold-out audiences from Las Vegas to Japan, and their songs became synonymous with the light, breezy pop sound of the 1970s and early 1980s. They were also frequent guests on television variety shows and specials, cementing their place in pop culture. During the 1980s, Toni began to explore other avenues for her talent. She hosted her own syndicated talk show, The Toni Tennille Show, and made guest appearances on popular TV shows like The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. She also lent her vocal talents to other musicians, providing backing vocals for Elton John and contributing to Pink Floyd's landmark album, The Wall. But as the 1980s drew to a close, Toni found herself returning to her musical roots. The big band and jazz music that had filled her home as a child began to call to her once again. In the mid-1980s, she shifted her focus to the American standards, performing with symphonies and big bands across the country. Her rich voice was perfectly suited to the soaring melodies and complex arrangements of the genre, and she began to record albums that celebrated the work of composers like George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, and Johnny Mercer. Her passion for this music reignited, and she continued to record and perform these timeless classics for many years. In 1998, Toni took on a new challenge when she signed on to play the lead role in the touring production of the musical Victor/Victoria. The role, made famous by Julie Andrews, was a demanding one, but Toni's stage presence and vocal abilities made her a natural fit. She toured with the production for close to a year, once again winning over audiences with her charisma and talent. By the early 2000s, Toni and Darryl had settled into a quieter life, moving from their longtime home in Reno, Nevada, to the high mountain desert community of Prescott, Arizona. There, Toni continued to perform occasionally, but also found new passions. She became deeply involved in the world of dog training and competition, particularly with her beloved Australian Shepherds. She and her dog Smokey even became a registered therapy dog team, visiting hospitals to bring comfort and joy to patients. After nearly 4 decades of marriage, Toni and Darryl separated in 2013, finalizing their divorce in 2014. Their split shocked many of their longtime fans, who had always seen them as the perfect couple. In her memoir, Toni would later reveal that their relationship had been much more complex than it appeared on the surface. While they had a deep bond, they were also very different people with different needs, and over time, those differences became too difficult to overcome. Toni Tennille and Darryl Dragon were one of the biggest music acts of the 1970s. Their catchy songs and undeniable chemistry on stage made them household names, with hits like "Love Will Keep Us Together" and "Do That to Me One More Time." Not only did they rule the charts, but they also had their own variety show on ABC, drawing in a massive 30 million viewers weekly. For a time, it seemed like they had it all. They were the picture of a successful musical duo, and their public persona led many to believe they were living a fairy tale romance off stage as well. However, as Toni Tennille has since revealed, the reality behind their relationship was far from the perfect love story their fans imagined. Toni and Darryl found great success as a musical team. Their voices blended seamlessly, and their songwriting chemistry was undeniable. They captivated audiences with their upbeat romantic songs about love and connection, leading everyone to believe that their personal relationship must have mirrored their professional one. But in her 2016 memoir, Toni Tennille, a memoir, Toni opened up about what was really going on behind the scenes, and it was nothing like the love songs they performed. From the very start, their relationship lacked the emotional depth and intimacy that Toni had always wanted. Toni has said that while their music was perfectly in sync, their personal relationship left much to be desired. Darryl, she explained, was emotionally distant, and though she spent many years trying to bridge that gap, it never truly happened. Toni spoke openly about how her hopes for a close, intimate marriage were never realized. "I was this person constantly looking for something he couldn't give," she explained in an interview. While she always craved a deep emotional connection, Darryl seemed unable to reciprocate that desire, leaving Toni feeling unfulfilled on a personal level. Despite this, she stayed by his side for nearly 4 decades, as both his wife and musical partner. Interestingly, it wasn't a grand romantic gesture that led to their marriage in the first place. As Toni recounts, it was actually their accountant who suggested that getting married would help them save on taxes. Darryl, never one for grand displays of affection, agreed. And just like that, they were married. For Toni, the practical nature of their decision to wed was a sign of what their relationship would become. More of a partnership built on convenience than a deep emotional connection. Even though their personal relationship was lacking, the music they made together was magic. Hits like "Muskrat Love," "Lonely Night," "Angel Face," and "The Way I Want to Touch You" dominated the airwaves in the 70s, and their variety show was a big success. In fact, their show was so popular that it even featured a very young John Travolta as a guest star, something Toni looks back on fondly. "Look at how cute he is," she laughed during a recent interview, remembering the days when their show was at its peak. Musically, the Captain and Tennille were in perfect harmony. But behind closed doors, Toni felt increasingly isolated. She described how she spent much of her marriage longing for a deeper connection, something she realized she would never get from Darryl. Their marriage lasted a surprising 39 years. But for much of that time, Toni was unhappy. In her memoir, she wrote about the pain of being in a marriage where she felt so emotionally disconnected. She wanted a partner who could be emotionally present with her. But Darryl, she said, just wasn't capable of that. Their hit songs often centered on themes of love and romance, but for Toni, those themes were largely absent from her own life. She wrote and sang about love, but she wasn't experiencing it in the way she had always hoped. To her, a marriage should be a deep, intimate connection between two people, something that was missing from her relationship with Daryl. By the time Toni decided to end the marriage in 2014, she had been feeling emotionally unfulfilled for years. She explained that one of the reasons she stayed in the marriage for so long was because of their fans. "People thought we had this fairy tale relationship," she said, "and I knew that they would be disappointed if they found out the truth." For decades, the public believed that the Captain and Tennille had the perfect love story, and Toni didn't want to let them down. However, as time went on, she realized that she couldn't continue to live in a marriage that wasn't making her happy. She had spent too many years trying to make things work, and it was time to finally prioritize her own happiness and well-being. In 2014, after 39 years of marriage, Toni filed for divorce. The decision to divorce wasn't an easy one, but for Toni, it was necessary. She had spent so much of her life trying to make the marriage work, but in the end, she couldn't ignore the fact that she and Daryl were never truly connected in the way she had always wanted. Love, as it turned out, couldn't keep them together. Despite the end of their marriage, Toni still cared deeply for Daryl. In the years after their divorce, she remained in contact with him, checking in on his health and well-being. When Daryl passed away in 2019, Toni was by his side, showing that, even though their marriage didn't work out, she still held a deep affection for him. In interviews after his death, Toni spoke about how she had always loved Daryl, even if their marriage wasn't the romantic partnership she had hoped for. For many fans, the revelation that the Captain and Tennille's marriage was not the fairy tale it appeared to be came as a surprise. But Toni's honesty about her experience resonated with many people who had gone through similar struggles in their own relationships. She showed that, even when things look perfect on the outside, the reality can be much more complicated. In her post-divorce years, Toni has embraced a quieter, more introspective life. At 75 years old, she still looks great, and, as many fans have noted, she's still rocking the same haircut she had during her Captain and Tennille days, thanks to the legendary Vidal Sassoon. Toni now spends her time pursuing personal passions, including her love for animals and her work in animal advocacy. She's especially fond of Australian shepherds and has been involved in therapy dog work for many years. Though her days of performing on grand stages are behind her, music remains an important part of Toni's life. She continues to play piano daily, returning to her classical and jazz roots. While she no longer performs regularly, her love for music is as strong as ever. Toni also stays connected with her fans through social media, where she shares updates about her life and reflects on her career. Despite the challenges she faced in her personal life, she remains a beloved figure in the music world, and her contributions to pop music continue to be celebrated. Toni Tennille's story is one of resilience. She may not have had the perfect love story that her fans imagined, but she found peace in her own way. Her honesty about her marriage to Daryl Dragon has allowed her to move forward, and her legacy as a talented musician and strong, independent woman continues to inspire. While the Captain and Tennille's marriage didn't last, the music they created together remains timeless, a testament to their undeniable connection as artists, even if it wasn't the connection Toni had hoped for in their personal lives. Toni Tennille's story gives us a deeper look into the reality behind one of music's most famous duos. It's a reminder that even the relationships we see in the spotlight can have struggles we don't know about. If you found this insight interesting, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.